Colossians, the second chapter, pretty much shows us that the New Testament church, they were keeping the Sabbath day and the feast days and the clean and unclean meats and so on. Here, the Apostle Paul, if you notice this expression, lest any man, verse 4 of Colossians 2, should beguile you with enticing words. And of course, when you look everywhere where he says, lest any man, verse 8, lest any man, these are the Gnostics that are challenging the New Testament church of their existing beliefs. Like here it says, lest any man should beguile you with enticing words, as opposed to God's words and God's understanding, as we read here in verse 9 of Colossians 1. For this cause we also, since the day we heard it, do not cease to pray for you and to desire that ye might be filled with the knowledge of his will, that we get from God's words, in all wisdom and spiritual understanding. Here it says in verse 4 of Colossians 2, and this I say, lest any man, those are the Gnostics, should beguile you with enticing words, with the different types of words, different types of spiritual understanding, as opposed to God's wisdom and God's understanding. They were challenging them on their existing beliefs. Verse 8, beware lest any man, those are the Gnostics, spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the traditions of men, as opposed to the traditions of God that they already had, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. So they were challenging them on their existing beliefs. Then it says here in verse 16, let no man, those are the Gnostics, therefore judge you. The Greek word is krino, and it means give an opinion. Therefore judge you in meat or in drink. These are the established traditions of God in the church. They were challenging them on their existing beliefs. Therefore judge you in meat or in drink. They were keeping the law of clean and unclean meats. Or in respect of an holy day, or of the new moon, that's the Feast of Trumpets, or on the Sabbath days. So here we see the New Testament church keeping the holy days of God and the weekly Sabbath, and the Gnostics were challenging them on these beliefs that they already have. Then it says, which, talking about the Gnostics and their beliefs, are a shadow of things to come. Here is the Apostle Paul giving us a prophecy of the coming apostate church and their beliefs that we read of in Revelation, the 17th chapter. These are a shadow of things to come, but the body is italicized and not in the original, but the body of Christ. And the context is, the body of Christ therefore judge you on how. The question, the challenge was on their existing beliefs. It was about how they worship these days. It wasn't a question of if, it was a question of how. It says, but the body of Christ, meaning therefore judge you on how these days should be worshipped. So Colossians 2:16 pretty much shows us here that they were keeping the holy days of God, the Feast of Trumpets, and the weekly Sabbath day, and the clean and unclean meats law. The New Testament church, they were keeping the Passover and the days of unleavened bread and the other holy days of God as well.